UFO news show where we dig into the biggest UFO headlines, the fight for disclosure, the push for transparency, and all of the above as we get ready to jump into tonight's show. I'm going to go ahead and get this show on the road. Luna holds a press conference and more. We have a few things that we're going to touch today. We're not going to be here too long, but the time has come. The time has come, right? We looked last week, and Luna made this cryptic statement on X that had everybody going crazy, had everybody going wild, had everybody speculating what was to come. And she said specifically, big announcement next week. This will change the nation. We sat on it for a while. We contemplated, we speculated, we thought, what could it be? What could it be? And it's finally come on out. And we're going to kind of go over transcripts of this press conference to see how we feel about it. Also, there was Ross Coulthard and Bryce Zabel on the Need to Know podcast, had an interesting video clip that I wanted to share. I'm going to share a little bit later. Also, Mike Gold from NASA was on the Weaponized podcast, and he said some things that were probably not really surprising to a lot of people. So we're going to go ahead, take a look at that and more, as not a super eventful week here in the UFO community, as we all know. But we're going to go ahead and have some fun and just at the very least, enjoy each other's company this evening. So I definitely want to make sure that we go ahead and just look out, see who has come through so far. There's a few people in here. I know JMJ12. How you doing? Saying cheers all right. Saying super crazy movie geek. Yes. Is the show really going live? It is. And let's see. It's really what the problem is that, you know, when you're curating the show, you don't have a team of people behind you. You kind of have to do it as it comes, right? And that's kind of what we're doing tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and get the information up here on the screen, and we're just going to talk through this because the time has come. She has released this announcement. Some of you may be feeling really good about it. Some of you may not be feeling that good about it. We're going to go ahead and see what everybody thinks. First, let me go ahead and bring up our slideshow here. And I want to make sure. All right, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and welcome everyone, which we did. Now we're going to go ahead and show the viewer message call-in line, which just put this in your phone. This won't be anything we'll use today, although I will be trying to implement this into the news show because the idea is to get your opinions on some of these things. So maybe on the next show, we'll go ahead and do that. The number, though, so you can put it in your phone, save it for later, is 856-843-3444, or that is 856-THE-DIGG. If you're outside the United States, that's 001-856-843-3444, or that's 001-856-THE-DIGG. We're going to go ahead and welcome our members as well, because they help this show be what it is, right? As far as being able to level up, pay these subscription fees to broadcast these shows. It is really appreciated. So I definitely want to make sure each and every episode that we recognize the members, which are Ann Joanne, The Beekeeper, D. Nunley, Maggie M10, Flat Six, Miss Catherine Jones, Cosmic Joe Chronicles, Wes Decker, Still Pooh 69, and Polly Rodderman. Do appreciate your support of the show. Like I said, you help make it go round. You help us be able to hire editors in the moment that we'll need those, pay subscription fees, and all the things that it takes to put on a live show. These things aren't free. YouTube is free, but the shows, unfortunately, are not, as far as putting them on goes. So all love and appreciation for anyone and everyone that views this show live or on replay. We do appreciate you all, and you can become a social soldier today by clicking the link in the description. It would obviously be something that definitely helps the show, as well as super chats. We do take those on this channel as well. Anything and everything that you do goes to producing and upping the quality on these shows. So thank you very much for your support as we get ready to kind of jump into the show. As I said, this won't be a long one. We're just going to go over what was said today in the it was actually yesterday, but we're going to obviously go over this today as far as the Anna Paulina Luna press conference where she has been kind of teasing this for the last week. Jared Moskowitz chimed in, said, I know. She said, big announcement next week. This will change the nation. I have mixed feelings, and we're going to kind of go through it right about now. So let me go ahead and bring this up. This will be Mike Gold, who we'll be getting to a little bit later. But Anna Paulina Luna. All right. So this is how it went. So, press conference with Chairman Comer standing right next to her. And, you know, you would have thought, based, a lot of people felt like, okay, this is going to be the big moment of disclosure. She's going to say something that is just going to break the doors down. But there were a lot of clues there that, you know, kind of didn't feel that way, right? Whereas she only addressed the nation instead of the world, which was one thing a lot of people pointed out. You know, I didn't feel that it was going to be fully about disclosure because it seemed that it could be open to just political agendas, right? Especially with everything that's going on within our governments right now. Not the best of times, and thought maybe okay, this could be an announcement saying that some of those things, some of the concerns that we currently have with our government, that those things will be rectified. You know, I'm open to that. I was open to this being an announcement for something along those lines, but I'll say that there was definitely, you know, I'll say a silver lining to everything that was done today. So I'm going to go ahead and read the transcripts instead of just playing the press conference because it was about 15 minutes long. And we don't want to get a copyright strike for that, right? So we want to go ahead and kind of just go over the transcripts. So it starts off with Chairman Comer stepping up to the mic, Anna Paulina Luna standing off to the side. And he says, today is a great day for transparency in America, because I'm proud to announce the creation of a task force on the declassification of federal secrets. Okay, so this is what the big surprise was, the task force on the declassification of federal secrets. Now, if you remember on Spaced Out Radio, I talked with Tim about that, and we talked about, yeah, it'd be kind of lackluster if it's just another committee being stood up to potentially do nothing or not to have results. And depending on how you felt about the press conference, you may feel like this is what this is going to be, just some more of that. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the transcript here. He says this task will be the part of the House Oversight Committee and led by the very talented and persistent Congresswoman from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna. During her time on the Oversight Committee, Representative Luna is a sledgehammer against government secrecy. He is committed to throw and open the windows for the American people to allow the sunlight of truth shine on the federal government. Wow. Sounds very inspiring. Sounds, if you take it at face value, if this is what it is, then, you know, that so far so good. Okay. If this is what it's going to be, right? Okay. She is committed to throw and open the windows for the American people to allow the sunshine of truth to shine on the federal government. I can think of no better person in Congress to lead this task force than Representative Luna. Last month, President Trump signed an executive order to begin the process to declassify information on the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and MLK. This task force serves to build President Trump's actions. For far too long, the American people have had reasonable questions of what their government, which they fund every day, keeps hidden about certain issues. And for far too long, the federal government has not answered these questions. This creates distrust in our institutions. that ends today. The voters of this nature delivered a historic mandate to President Trump on November 5th. The keystone of that mandate was demanding increased transparency of their government and elected leaders, and the mandate of this task force is to acquire that transparency. So the statement on the face of it, okay, yes, I think pretty much everything that was said there is what we want, not just for UFOs. I mean, for to find out what happened with the assassination of JFK, RFK, and MLK. We know that there have been various situations that our government has been caught in. Uh, the syphilis trials with the Tuskegee, you know what I'm talking about, Tuskegee experiment. Also, just the super soldier program that they had for the soldiers that they were trying to, test ecstasy, or not ecstasy, but LSD on these soldiers, and just all sorts of weird, crazy things that they've tested and tried on the American people, our American soldiers, and just various other things. So transparency would be a great start, right? To just uncovering all of that and maybe circumventing things like that from happening in the future. So off to a great start, I would say. Anna Paulina Luna then steps up to the podium, and this is what she had to say. He said the assassination of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King and unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, and unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of Snowvid 19 is what we'll call it, and the 9/11 files. This task force will be a beacon of bipartisanship on the Republican side. Representatives Burchett, Boebert, Burleson, Crane, and Gill and Mace will be joining me, although I'd like to note that I'm expanding this to the entire governing body and will be allowing certain members to waive on. Our first hearing is set for March. The date will be out soon, and we've already initiated close to a dozen communications with various agencies, to include Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice and the Secretary of State. This will no longer be a force that just makes both promises only to fade into relevance or send strongly worded letters. This will be a relentless pursuit of the truth and transparency, and we will not stop until the American people have the answers that they deserve. We will cut through the bureaucracy, challenge the stonewalling, and ensure that the American people finally get the truth that they have been denied for too long. If we are to endure and thrive as a nation, we must restore trust through transparency. The American people must be trusted to think for themselves, to form their own judgments from the truth that they are entitled to know. We've been treated like children for too long and kept in the dark by those elected to serve us. It is my solemn duty to begin mending this trust, to form a new relationship between the government and the governed. Let us embark on this journey together towards a government that does not just serve, but one that enlightens. Trust through transparency, that begins now. Again, an awesome introductory statement there. It is something that I agree with. Transparency with the government, I think we all can agree with that. We have put them in power, right? They work for us. Therefore, they should be more than willing to give us answers, the answers that we ask for at any point in time, not just over the UFO issue, but just at any point in time for anything that we want to know the answers to, right? As long as they don't cross over into obviously national security or top secret things, right? Because essentially everything else we should know about. We should know where our money goes. We should probably, if you think about it, have an accounting system for that, so we can see Like we should get a yearly receipt that shows where the money was spent, right? Because I think that circumvents a lot of the issues that we have wondering why the DOD and the Pentagon keep failing their audits, right? And where the money goes there. We know a lot of it goes to black projects, but we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars. And we have all these problems and issues out here as American people that we could use some of that money for, right? If it's being used for things that you end up scrapping at the end of the day, I think that's not a good it's not a good thing. That money could be used somewhere else. So I think transparency is awesome. She goes on to say, after this, okay, I know someone asked her a question, but she says, well, certainly I think that they be supportive, being that they're advocating for this. I also want to remind American people this is bipartisan. There's also Democrats that are looking into answering these questions, these very questions, but certainly we would share information with the American people. This is about transparency. And I think, again, as I stated, for far too long, there's been a massive push to keep the American people in the dark that ends today. In full transparency, we have a great working relationship, as I stated earlier, with the White House and the DOJ, with the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State. The incoming FBI director, I think, will be very supportive. And we've also been told that the CIA is very supportive. To put in perspective, I think that the issue transcends not just only one administration, but multiple administrations. And hasn't been until now that we have been able to get people actually in positions of power that will push for transparency. Now, if I find that different entities in the various intelligence agencies are stonewalling us, I'm going to make it known to the American people. But as of right now, we are cautiously optimistic. And so it all sounds good on the face of it, right? If we just judge by his history, then we know that even though these are some of the aspirations for the committees that they set up, that they usually don't get to accomplish those things, right? For whatever reason. So the stonewalling, the stonewalling's been going on for a long time. They've gone to facilities where they had clearance to go and were stonewalled when they got there. You remember the press conferences where they have said this, right? So what has changed since then? Does uh this new committee or this new commission change that at all? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Unfortunately, this is one of those ones where we can't say right off the bat that it won't work, or because we just don't know. This is a new sort of endeavor as far as the angle that they're taking. And I think the positive part so far that as we get through the script is that they are at least going into it uh, with the understanding that most of the people involved in this push are under the understanding that there are extraterrestrial craft that are coming here from somewhere else. And it's pretty much not something that they have to be convinced about because they've seen things on their own with the clearances that they have and they've been told things in these skiffs that lead them to the determination that these whistleblowers that are testifying can't all be lying. There has to be some more to the story. Plus, obviously, the other information that we're just not privy to. So, I think she opened it up for questions. There were a few questions that came through. So, one of the questions was, "What is your priority list? Is it Epstein, 9/11?" And then she goes on to say, our first investigation will be announced, but it's going to be covering on a thorough investigation into the John F. Kennedy assassination. And I can tell you, based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually faulty in a single bullet theory. I believe that there were two shooters, and we should be finding more information as we are able to gain access into the skiff, hopefully before the files are actually released to the public. Another question came through. Have you identified the Democrats who will sit on the task force? And you can't. And can you tell us a little bit more about their role of Democrats in this? Now, that was one of the things that was concerning to me, that there weren't any Democrats up there. Normally, when the task force steps up and makes holds a press conference and makes a statement, they're usually representatives from each side of the aisle there, and it wasn't this time. It was just the Republicans up there making these statements, but saying that Democrats would definitely be included in what was going on. And you would assume that Jared Moskowitz knows about this, because he replied with the "I know" response last week. So you would assume he's going to definitely be part of this, but it's just a little concerning that they weren't up there. We have not a single Democratic representative up there, which is, makes me feel a little bit, and I'll kind of go into why I feel like this, but she answered to the Democrat question. So again, this is a bipartisan commission. Remember, JFK was a Democrat, RFK was a Democrat, and I think the entire conference has a question on what actually happened with Dr. Martin Luther King, but also UAPs. You guys know that that was the biggest bipartisan bicameral hearing and we've ever had, and I think in congressional history. I do not know who their members are yet. They've noticed it, but they are taking this very seriously. This is not a conspiracy theory investigating committee. We're actually looking to present truth to the American people. And it's in my opinion that no one person elected to office is more important or more qualified to look at the information that they've been hiding from us. So we look to push for that transparency. All right. And it's a lot of great words that are shoring up the intent of this new committee. And a lot of feel good words, right, are in there. Um, let's see, transparency, bipartisanship. Let's see, and just pointing out that maybe some of the previous investigations into some of these things weren't done correctly, and now we're going to do them correctly this time. So we'll see. Next question was, what sort of witnesses will you expect to have at your hearings, at least the first ones you launch? Would that be department heads, former employees, or various agencies? And she replied with, "Yeah, I was gonna say I'm based on what we're actually looking to do with the JFK investigation. I'm looking to actually bring in some of the attending physicians at the initial assassination, and also people that have been on various commissions like the Warren Commission looking into the initial assassination. There's been conflicting evidence, and I think that even the FBI at some time reported some anomalies in the initial autopsy at Bethesda, Maryland. All of those seem to have rinsed and repeated in the media to push a certain narrative that we don't agree with. And so I think that in order to put to bed some of the theories that have been out there on JFK, we have to know the full truth, and the full truth starts with transparency. That's why these files are so important for the American people to read for themselves. Okay. Once again, transparency being used a lot in there, and the angle, some of these opinions have been stated by citizens. Some of the things that are being said right here in that last statement, and so it on the face of it, it would seem like, okay, this is promising. If they do what they're supposed to do, that this should be something that at least is a avenue to get transparency on just some of the things that we may want to know. But there is, if it's allowed to be used in this way, there are ways that it potentially could be used in not the best ways. And so we'll kind of get into that. But um, the next question that came up here was, with this task force, what are you hoping to uncover as far as UAP that you have not already heard from other UAP hearings? He says the biggest information problems that we've had with UAPs is the amount of stonewalling, stovepiping, and also it seems that there is a push to gaslight the American people into looking at the evidence and then not fully believing it. I think for us, if we're writing the budget, for example, into the Pentagon, if we're writing the budget overall for whatever programs might be out there, why is it that members of Congress were given secret security clearance are being denied access? That's not a free and true government. And so for us, especially being that now we have a Secretary of State who's Marco Rubio, who's actually open to declassification, and Marco Rubio, we're hoping to present that information and at least acknowledge it from a government perspective that we are not alone, but also let's see what the evidence says. That's again, I can't really say anything bad about that. I mean, it makes you hopeful. The right things are being said there, right? So if they're writing the budgets, they definitely should have not be denied in any way access to finding out where this money is being spent. There shouldn't be, right? So if this is a committee that will kind of circumvent that and allow the transparency to literally be there to where they can see where the money is going, then I think that's definitely a positive. All right. Now, it's not aliens. It's not the thing that we expected or a lot of people hoped for, the big thing. But we also said going into this that not to set your expectations too high because then you fall flat on your face. And so I didn't go into this with super high expectations. Although, when you sit there for a while and you try to read between the lines, there's just so many different scenarios that you could come up with. So finally have answers. And let's see, the next question that came up was, have you already been in contact and sent requests to these different agencies and federal departments for this information? Her answer was yes. In fact, the letters went out this morning, but not just on RFK, JFK, and MLK, but on everything I listed above, including UAPs, Epstein, and 9/11 and COVID, to the State Department, Department of Defense, CIA, and then also we'll be sending some to the FBI and letters also going out to the NSA. The next question was, how is this going to be different from the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which investigated JFK assassinations and MLK assassinations? Her reply was interesting. On that specific committee, is what my understanding, when they actually brought in expert witnesses, they weren't actually people that were in attendance to the initial autopsy at Bethesda, but also this is a bigger committee than just the JFK assassination. We're also expanding into Epstein, COVID origins, 9/11, and then UAPs and USOs. And so before where we initially had some of these hearings, this is going to be an encompassing committee that's going to work directly with the White House on information that they are declassifying. And that was another thing that Tim and I were talking about. I mean, we said right there on Spaced Out Radio that it would be great if this is going to be a committee or an office that has a direct line to the president, right? To be able to parse this information, bring things to light, and then potentially, shoot this information directly to the president to where maybe it opens up the chance of one day getting that president at the podium moment where this information is being put out. Now, there are some reasons why this may not work in the way that it should, the way that it looks and the way it should be outlined. And there's a couple video clips. I think Ross Coulthard had a pretty good angle on why maybe not to expect some of this stuff. But we'll see. We'll get there in a minute. So, all right. So the next question, a reporter asked her, "Are you guys going to get top secret clearances?" She replies with, "I already have a top secret clearance. All members of Congress have TSCI. The question is, do we get SAP access?" Which Chairman Comer has been very supportive, and we will be getting SAP access as well. So that's special access programs, right? For those who may not know. And that was part of the issue so far, getting to the point where we're at, where they had these top secret clearances, but they weren't cleared on some of these special access programs to be able to get further information on some of that. So if that's going to be all encompassing, if they walk into this with clearance for special access programs, that means they can go further or dig further into what they need to dig into. And I said the thing that makes me just hopeful or optimistic about this is that the people that have been involved that we've seen them hold these hearings, these last few hearings, and the questions that they ask are definitely the questions they should be asking, right? The questions seem to be coming from the angle of people within the UFO community. So I think that that's a good place to start. And if that's going to be the angle, and they will have that much more access, I think makes it good, right? But I still think you should allow, separate government disclosure from humanity led disclosure, right? Because we still need to do what we need to do. And if they're able to do these things over here as the government, then okay, fine, do those things. We won't necessarily hold our breath on any of that. We'll continue to do what we do, but hopefully it all lines up and we get those things to come together for maybe a moment that changes humanity. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But the next, let's see, okay, then they started talking about some political agenda stuff, sanctuary cities. So we won't cover that. But they got to the last question. They gave it to News Nation reporter Joe Khalil, and he asked Anna Paulina Luna. Basically, we couldn't hear the first part. We said, "Your relationship with whistleblowers, is it going to be the normal process that oversight typically does, or are you going to create a separate avenue for the task force?" And she replied with, "I mean, we're all about the normal process, but look, if you have information and it's credible, we've always approached it, and that I'd like to be the person that does the interviews for it, mainly because, especially with stuff like this, we want to make sure that there's, not bad actors and that are pushing false information to create an area that simply is not there. And, every whistleblower that does come out as of right now, there's people that have been publicly out there, for example, on the JFK stuff, that were actually present in the room at the operating and in the operating room where he was actually brought in right after the shooting. So we hope to bring those people in to testify again. These hearings will be open to the public. I am also expanding this to the entire conference. So if someone's going to take this seriously and look at it through an investigative lens and get answers to the American people, they're welcome to ask questions of witnesses, and you guys will all receive notice of that. Okay, great. So they're going to allow it to be done in a public forum. I don't know how that would work, but it appears that she's saying that questions will be open to be presented from the public side of the conversation, which if so, that'd be great, because there are questions that we would probably end up asking that maybe just isn't in the sphere of thought for the officials who would normally be asking the questions, even though the questions have been getting better and better every hearing that passes. So, but I think that's a bright point to what was said. But here's where it got a little, this is where the part that I get worried about. So, right after she made the statement, Chairman Comer stepped in. And once again, we didn't have a bipartisan unification up on stage. It was essentially the Republican side, which was fine if they're pushing for the right things, right? But he stepped in and he said, and we'll work with anyone that currently works for the federal government, uh, wants to declare whistleblower status and receive whistleblower protection if that's what they're interested in doing. And I don't think they're going to face the type of retaliation that the previous administration gave whistleblowers, particularly in IRS whistleblowers that blew the whistle on the cover up of the Biden family. So for me, that rubbed me the wrong way, because now you're politicizing this committee. Now you're using it, or you're talking about it being used in a way to focus on attacking different administrations, right? And we don't want it to be a tool for that. We want it to be a tool for transparency for the public and the government. And maybe some of those questions are the ones that people want to know, maybe, but not to specifically be used by politicians to dig up things on an administration that they didn't particularly like. That's the part that bugged me. And the fact that there weren't any Democrats on the stage to represent the bipartisanship that they've shown in previous other hearings. So that part gets to me, and I'm just hoping, that statement for me kind of almost eliminated everything that was said before. All the good feelings I had before, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, okay, this could be weaponized. And there's to even make the statement like that means you have a thought of weaponizing it to use it for that sort of purpose. And that's where this, we said progress or politics, where the politics start coming in, right? And you can see it on Luna's face. She didn't really, even though I'm sure she has her stances politically, this wasn't a press conference for that, right? So you could see her face in her, how she felt about him saying that, because she immediately jumped in as he said that and said, I'd also like to close with this. So she made sure she had the final word. If you are an independent investigator, we are being told that the FBI has now located thousands of pages of documents that they lost before, specifically related to JFK. We are going to get through as much as we can. We have a great team of attorneys. We have a great team of investigators looking into this, but it doesn't mean that we won't accept help from the public. And so we will be setting up a place for collection for people to present information. But again, this is about transparency. The government works for us. There have been people, I think, in power for too long that tried to silence and keep us in the dark, but that stops today. You're seeing that same message come out of the White House and out of the CIA, the FBI, and every other agency in between. So we are very happy to have support of all those individuals, happy to have the support of Chairman Comer and Speaker Johnson. And if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the oversight.com. We'd be happy to answer the questions at that time. And kind of ended it. So it was almost a press conference where it took on a bipartisan feel to it, even though the Democrats weren't there to represent. But it's still, for Comer to step in there and kind of, make a statement at the end there that sort of implied that it could be used to uncover things about the previous administration. Well, that's where we get into the politics, and I just hope that it isn't being used as a tool for something like that, and it's being used for what Luna said, which is transparency. She said it about 50 times during the press conference, and she spoke about it from a us perspective, which means everyone, not Republican or Democrat, but everyone. And I think that's how it should be approached. And if it could be used in that way, to benefit what it is that we're trying to do, then I'm okay with most of that. But it just rubbed me the wrong way, and I felt some kind of way about the comment about, when they started using it as a weapon, how, and I just, that's where you lose me. And that's why I don't really get into politics like that. Um, hey, Cat's Tongue, appreciate you. Overlander BC, either you're transparent or you're not. Facts. You can say transparency a million times, but we have to see some results. Overlander BC, transparency can't just stop where people are politically uncomfortable, right? No, transparency should be across the board, but we shouldn't make it political, right? That's my stance. It shouldn't be about what side you're on. It should be about just being transparent, period. Right? So, but you don't have to point out things because you stand on one side, point out things about the other side, and then vice versa, because there's nothing to do with that. It has to do from us as American citizens as a whole, one group of people that want secrets uncovered and want the government to be transparent. So stop. You got to quit drawing the lines. Politics plays no part in this at all. Eternity Eternal. Hi, Rob G. Appreciate you coming in. Zenzabil, appreciate you showing up. Let's see. Miss Catherine Jones, I see you out there. Appreciate you showing up. Mike Jones. Mike Jones, who? Mike Jones. Appreciate you showing on up. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna get more into this, and this was one thing that I wanted to point out, because this is something that we said. This is Ross Coulthard and Bryce Abel recently reconnected on their show. Need to Know. They hadn't been on for a while, so they were kind of going over some of the things that had happened in the recent weeks and months, right? And there were some things that were being pointed out, and this is something I already said. Right. It's not about administrations and who's in office per se. All administrations are the same as far as in my eyes, all politicians are the same. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you are on. So we did notice that, in December, we weren't getting any answers. We had a incoming president that said, hey, you know what? I don't know why they're not giving you answers. It's crazy. They should be telling you. You should know. They should be willing to say what's going on. And hey, when I get in, I'm going to go ahead and do that on day one. And then you already know how the press conference turned out with the White House press secretary. But this was Ross Coulthard's opinion on that, and we're going to go ahead and play that.
Trump wimped it on the drones. I mean, I think Trump showed cowardice on the drones. Well, I'm shocked that the Trump administration came out with that ridiculously lame statement from the White House press secretary, where she talked about how the FAA had authorized drones for research and other purposes. And the fact that the president of the United States, a person who has campaigned on the deep state, if you like, would allow himself to be so egregiously snowed by what is blatantly Pentagon disinformation. He needs, and this is a real test of Trump. I mean, essentially, this is the moment when we really see if Trump's all hot air. I mean, I do think that with Donald Trump, you judge him by what he does, not by what he says. And I credit, by the way, Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, on his USA Today, Rest is Politics US podcast, which I love. So judge Donald Trump on what he does, not what he says. And for me, the big moment, the big test was whether after months and months and months of incursions by drones over military bases, where in some cases airstrips have had to be closed down for several hours, in fact, as much as a day, because of incursions over those bases. It was incumbent on the new administration to basically make a decision about what they were going to tell the public. And Trump had promised. He'd promised that he was going to ask for an investigation and he was going to get an answer. And frankly, what we've received to date from the White House is, I'm afraid, more of the same. I mean, judge him by what he does. And what he's done, frankly, is come out and parrot the same old tired Pentagon line. And I don't know whether President Trump was knowingly involved in the release of that decision because it came from a female spokeswoman. I hope that it was just a junior decision that was made by his chief of staff and passed on down through the chain for the spokeswoman to release at a press conference. But does Trump really want to be associated with such a disingenuous and completely inadequate answer? Why would the FAA have authorized drones for research purposes when it said on oath in December? It basically, it's either lied or it's committed perjury. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but why? Basically, the FAA testified on oath to the Congress that there was absolutely no suggestion that these were US government or US government authorized drones. There was no authorization for these flights. These were incursions by unknowns. That was the evidence that was given by the FAA. They lied. Yes, if that's true. They have lied. Yes. Now, and this is the thing that really gets me is I've been taught as a journalist, and I'm sure you were too, when you see that kind of obvious contradiction on the facts, when you see, on the one hand, the FAA has basically said, you know, these are not authorized objects over US sensitive facilities, over US airspace. You know, these are unknown craft. You know, at different times we've been told they may be Iranian, they might be foreign adversaries. Nobody's got an answer. And privately, people I'm talking to are telling me contradictory things. On the one hand, there's kind of a rusted on belt of people who probably don't really know, but who are inclined to accept what's being fed down to them through the grapevine, which is, don't worry, guys, this is us, don't worry, you know, it's all friendly, don't worry about it. And then the guys who I was talking to who really know, who actually have had direct involvement on the ground with these drones in the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, DOD, they had no idea what these drones were. They were telling me, Ross, we do not know what these objects are.
Yeah, so what that does for me is it actually, you know, it just lets us know that there won't ever be an administration that will be willing to do that. And the reason why I showed that is because we have, you know, Luna coming out and talking about government transparency in this new committee, and we want to be hopeful for it. We want to be optimistic, but we know just from being alive and seeing presidents come and go and administrations come and go, that we know that certain things just don't get touched. Certain things just don't get spoken about. And, you know, I want to be optimistic for this new committee, which is the task force on the declassification of federal secrets. I want to see what kind of acronym they put together for that, but I want to be hopeful for it, right? But just to point out where we had potentially a president coming in that would be, a lot of people consider one that would be the one willing to do this. And then, you know, he's even come in and saying, yeah, that I really want to do that. And it just shows that it may not be the case that it could ever be done by any president. And I'm just like, okay, well, if this ends up being the case, then what is this task force really going to do, right? At the end of the day, that's the other side to it. It, on the face of it, looks really great. It looks, if it's implied and if they actually follow the rule, then it could be wonderful. But as you just heard Ross say, you know, he had a chance to kind of head this stuff off and really genuinely look into this, but it's not going to happen, right? And it's going to be that way likely with any administration that comes in office, unless you vote for me. Unless you vote for me on the next one, I'm going straight for it. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what black project, I don't care what secret shadow anything. If I got in there, I would do it. And I know a lot of them say that before they get in there, right? But I'm not swayed politically by anything, right? And we need somebody in there like that doesn't play politics for something like this to happen. And I think that's really the biggest message on this here. And I had Overlander had a message in here that I did want to bring up a moment ago, which if I can find it. Yeah, I like this, Overlander. I do like this. Perhaps any sort of authority tasked with disclosure should be outside the political sphere of the USA altogether. Agreed. Essentially what I just was saying. So that if any past or present political party is implicated, it's not partisan. I like it. That's why I wish, you know, some other country who has the information would just take the lead on this. Don't leave it up to us. Just take the lead and then force USA to fall in line. You know, any country out there, I know Brazil's been really loud about disclosure and bringing this stuff out. Let's find a way to get behind that. Find a way to get behind Brazil's movement for UFO transparency and disclosure, and we'll probably get there a lot quicker than we will depending on these committees. I don't depend on these committees just on the face of it, but I want to point out the silver linings in what was said because there were cool things said, right? But in order for them to really matter, they really have to be used and activated. And just if we're going off history, we know that it's very unlikely that that ends up happening. Although we have never seen Congress people taking the issue as seriously as they have lately. So that's why I say let's do our thing over here as humanity and in the disclosure process that we're going through ourselves, not hold our breath on anything that they're doing and just hope that something good comes from that, because then that just ends up being the cherry on top. That's kind of how I look at that. But yeah, that's why I wanted to play that Ross video. If you want to see the whole video, need to know it was a good broadcast. Go over to their website or their YouTube channel, youtube.com. I think it's /@ need to know. I'm not sure, but I'm sure you can easily find it. Let's see, what else did we have here? This right here. This right here. I wanted to play this because this was tongue in cheek, and I'm not even going to play that like it wasn't. Although I think even though you have someone that says something tongue in cheek, there ends up being truth to what was said. And you tell me how you feel about this. Let me go ahead and change the slide here because it was your guy, Mike Gold. Mike Gold on the Weaponized podcast, and I'm sure if you watched it already, you kind of probably know what I'm about to show you here. But let's go back to the hearing back in November. Everyone pretty much that I've talked to agreed that it was sort of weird seeing Mike Gold there at the press conference testifying in front of Congress. It was like, okay, what is he doing here? Is he going to go against the script and tell Congress all the things that most of us already know about NASA and the fact that they shut off their space station cameras when anomalous things occur? Or is he there to talk about some of the STS shuttle missions that show video of anomalous things taking place in our atmosphere? Is he going to do any of these things? And he didn't do anything literally but come on there and essentially talk about how NASA needed funding. And it was just a waste of a seat. That we've talked about that as well. But it was just so wild that he even had the audacity to say what he said when he went on the Weaponized podcast. So I'm going to just play the little clip. If you've seen it, you've seen it. If you haven't, you're probably gonna die laughing at this, but maybe not, because just think about what it means. Here we go.
Assign an individual to serve as the UAP research director. So wasn't everything I wanted, but a step forward. And again, NASA's in a very tough budget situation, and that's very unfortunate. We should all call our senators and urge for more dollars for NASA. And I know one of the other things people are saying, oh, Mike's a shill for NASA. Yes, I am a shill for NASA. Absolutely guilty. Guilty as charged. I am a fan of SpaceX.
Okay, let me just stop it right there real quick. That should still be on screen, right? A shill for NASA. Is that okay? Is that okay to say? What part of that is okay? Because if you just stop the video right there, it's just like, we knew you were a shill for NASA. We knew when we saw you at the hearing, we knew you were a shill for NASA because you were there only to talk about money. And here you are again on Weaponized, even though there were other, and you'll have to watch the full interview for context. I'm going to play, there's a little bit more in this video, but I just wanted to stop it right there because why would you go in there and even say that? I mean, it's being truthful, so I got to at least give you that. But it's like, how am I to hear that, and then anything else you say in this interview, how am I supposed to take it at face value? Jeremy challenges him during this interview a couple times, or at least has some really good questions. You know, and we'll kind of get into that. But let me go ahead and continue the video.
Science, we should be spending more money on this. And by the way,
Let me take it back.
Absolutely guilty. Guilty as charged. I am a fan of space exploration, space science. We should be spending more money on this. And by the way, on the UAP topic, the more we push the envelope of exploration, going to the moon, going to Mars, the more data that I think we're going to generate in UAP. And while NASA's not perfect, certainly I think it's more transparent than DoD activities, et cetera. So we're going to learn a lot more.
Let me just address that. So you're talking about, am I a shill for NASA? Yes, give them funding. You're making a joke, but I do want to address it in this space. For a long time, people have always said that if UFOs are all abuzz around the globe, who's going to have that data? And it would be NASA is what people have said. Now, maybe not everybody's read into that or sees that, but there's a lot of, I'd say, information out there that NASA hasn't been straightforward about UFOs, about UAP, about their existence. That's mandated from the top down, that NASA's to cover stuff up. I just wanted to kind of hit a nail on the head here. Look, I'm an investigative journalist. I know some things. I don't know if you can talk about it. But the elephant in the room for me is by the time this airs, everybody is going to be talking about crash retrievals.
Yeah.
And, I've been signaled a number of times. We know for a fact that Lockheed Martin, the vice president, was trying to transfer a UAP. It was described in detail to George and myself by Dr. James Lakatsky, the shape of an egg ship. He could say all that. So we've got a craft of unknown origin, which they believe to be NHI, built from a non-human intelligence. And they were trying to move that out of Lockheed because they hadn't made progress and bring it kind of back into to another organization that could work on it. You know that to be true and not just rumor as well. That is now on public record. You're aware that is true information, right?
So unfortunately, Jeremy, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of that having occurred, but I cannot tell you how frustrating it is for me to hear these stories of advanced technology, of reverse engineering, when we're struggling to get back to the moon and NASA in the private sector. One of the things we do at Redwire, we've roll out solar arrays, which are compacted like a carpet. They launch, they roll out later. These are wonderful technologies that will help us go forward, et cetera. But we're still using chemical rocketry.
But are you telling me that you don't have any personal knowledge of crash retrievals?
Yeah, I don't have any personal exposure or knowledge of it. When I was at NASA, I reached out to Jay Stratton, who was UAP Task Force at the time, because I wanted to have that very conversation. I wanted to be helpful, first and foremost, to UAP Task Force to make sure that NASA was providing a constructive role. But if there was more, I certainly wanted to know about it. And, I think Jay has gone on the record relative to extraterrestrial crash retrieval, Lou, et cetera. I tried to do what I can to find out. I wasn't exposed to anything, unfortunately.
Okay, so you're not holding any secrets back from me?
I'm not holding any secrets back.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, man, because, there are some rumors going around. So.
Yeah. If I did, Jeremy, believe me, I would be the first to say, if I was holding back for, I do hold a top secret clearance still. If I was holding back because of a classified reason, I would tell you. I can tell you I don't have any, unfortunately, personal firsthand experience.
Yeah, shill. I mean, okay, we started off with the comment that he says where he admits to being a shill. Does anything after that we just want sound truthful coming out this guy's mouth? Once you admit that you're a shill, that's it. That's it. You might as well remove yourself from the conversation. Like, you can't not know what shill means. You can't not know what the impact of admitting that you are a shill. You can't not know how that affects the conversation. Where's the you could be telling the truth about everything that was said afterwards, but it can't be accepted as truth because you have admitted initially to being a shill, which we could clearly see. You didn't have to say it because we knew that, and we knew that going back to the actual NASA press conference that we watched about a year or so ago with Sean Kirkpatrick. It was evident because we know NASA has all of the data. It isn't a question on if they have it. We know they have it. We know that it's there. We've seen it ourselves. We've seen the like I said before, the STS shuttle mission videos. We've seen those. They're all over the internet. We've seen the weird things on the International Space Station cameras. We've seen all that. It's on the internet. Like, you can't make that go away. We know that's in your databases. We know if you were and you have a top secret clearance, I don't know how far that allows you to go within NASA as far as looking at things, but I'm sure you're able to talk to other people who have similar clearances who could validate for you that, yeah, we've been seeing things this whole time. The astronauts have come back saying things. You can't, there's no way in the world that you could walk away from this conversation and not have at least insinuated that, hey, yeah, maybe there definitely is something going on with the NASA. I just didn't get that. And so it was just funny to me because he admitted to being a shield. That was, otherwise we wouldn't even be looking at the clip. That was really the main thing, is that he went on record to say he was a shill. And so we know there are other examples of that in the community. We know Sean Kirkpatrick was the same thing. We know that. And that are actively participating in the UFO conversation is the problem. They're actively engaging with the UFO community, right? What other message could you want to deliver? He said he had interest on going on other podcasts and things of that nature. I would interview him. I would for sure interview him so I can ask him some of those questions. But and I think Jeremy did a good job. There's, it was obviously edited and cut down a little bit there. If you watch their full interview, he definitely asked some tough questions. A couple of questions that might have made him hot under the collar a little bit, at least made him sweat a little bit. But you have to ask, why are you engaging actively into the conversation? Why did you show up at the hearing? He kind of asked him that during the interview, and you'll be able to find that out when you go and watch it. But he gives an answer on why he decided to show up, right? I think he said it's for his kid, because his kid was a Corbell fan or something like that. Nah, these seem like plants into the conversation. Like, we know there's something going on in the skies, period. Like, and you're not there to confirm nor deny it, but your main talking point is how NASA needs more funding. I wouldn't give NASA a dime, another dime, not another dime going forward until they release the information that they already have. All the boatloads of information that they've gathered over the years, and they've been funded all this time. You talking about you need more funding? Stop. Engage with the conversation with the data that you have. That is ridiculous. Thank you very much for your support here tonight. And I see you out there. And Christine, let me see. This is weird how it won't come up. Let me see. Oh, maybe I need to scroll down. There we go. Thank you very much, Richard Minnick. We do appreciate your support of Social Dig and Definitive UFO News Show. Man, it's just, yeah, he was so proud about it. He was just, yeah, I'm a shill. Yeah. Send more money to NASA. That's crazy. That's just crazy. And this could be true, Overlander. I'm not sure. It's to be determined. Or Overlander BC is saying, I believe Corbell is an assigned handler of Nap Lazar. Yeah, I don't know, but I'll say that he definitely asked this guy Mike Gold some questions, some journalistic questions. I was kind of proud of him for doing that. I was like, oh, okay, you're not going to just have this guy on and let him, dictate the narrative, right? And he didn't, and George Knapp was watching him and kind of allowing him to do. So I saw some cool things there, but it's just the thing that got me, and the reason why we're even showing this today is because he literally sat there on his own. Didn't know anybody bring up Shill or anything. He brought it up on his own because yes, people in the community have said that about you being at the UFO hearing because it didn't make sense while you were there. And then when you did speak up at the hearing, you didn't speak to anything that was helping the conversation. So yeah, people, I'm sure, because I came to the conclusion a long time ago. I'm sure others have as well. So yeah, you may have picked up on that fact, but you didn't have to say it. Because now, if, like I said, anything else you said after that, if you're being truthful, I can't take it at face value. I just can't. So, um, let's see. Zenzabil, Corbell's worst thing to happen to Lazar post 90s. I'll say this. I will say that when we first, or at least I'll speak for me, because I don't know if this is how everybody else saw it, but when I first started learning about Corbell, it was in relation to Bob Lazar. Like I already know about Bob Lazar because I've seen things over the years, but like in the recent time, Bob Lazar speaking and being like on Rogan and things like that, Jeremy was always with them. Then Jeremy did the Lazar documentary, so there were a lot of things that connected those two, in the recent past. So it was just funny to me, and I don't mean funny as haha. It was just strange to me that that he did not, that they have, not really been together a lot. And it could be, I don't know why, because I don't know their relationship behind the scenes. But Lazar has been in his own space and Corbell has been in his own space, separate from each other. I think they made a recent appearance together on the TMZ series, the UFO Encounters or whatever it is that just came. Season 2 came out, and I know Bob Lazar was on that. Otherwise, I haven't really seen them two together in quite a long time, and you just have to just ask yourself why. I would like to know. Um, let's see. I think who's this? Overlander. I think Corbell and West have sat at the same briefings, knowing full well they have to play the same assignments on opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue about Mick West, truthfully, because I'm like, I could be with you on that. I don't know about Corbell though being. I hear people say that, but I don't really see where the benefit is for him to be playing a role like that. I just don't see it. If I did see it, then I'd be like saying it right now. But um, I can see West though, because West just debunks immediately. Like he goes into full shutdown mode of whatever this is. Oh, it's an exciting new video. Oh no, let me tell you what this is. This is light flare and bloom through a malfunctioning gimbal and just immediately tear down mode for Mick West. I've never seen him recently in a moment where he even takes a moment to sit back and think of, oh, maybe this is real. Like it's immediately can't be real, and I'm gonna tell you X, Y, and Z. And a lot of the times, if you really do the fact checking on what it is he's saying, he's just throwing out a bunch of BS when he's trying to uh, shut down these videos. I mean, he's throwing something out there really quick to see if it sticks. And I have proof because he did that with my UFO sighting. With my UFO sighting, he spent barely no time on it and he came back and tried to say it was birds when it wasn't. So, you know what that did for me? For me, that showed me that he is wrong a lot of the time. Like he is just throwing stuff out there and he is wrong. That's what it showed me. And you have so many people in the skeptical community that hold him so high in regard and like, oh, he does all this work to figure things out. He was wrong about my sighting, and it makes me wonder about how many other sightings he's been wrong about. And I think maybe if people sit down and do some of the work and kind of look at it, you might find that he's wrong a lot of the time, right? So if he's wrong a lot of the time, even more than a certain percentage, then why should he ever be the go-to guy for information on what is or isn't UFOs, right? That's what for me would point to him being part of some sort of scheme because he's constantly being used, even though you could look at the data that he has on some cases and show that he was just absolutely wrong. So I don't know about Corbell though. If I saw it, I would say it. That's the fact. Magneticus says just follow the money. And maybe you could do that. But I think when you get into that, when you spend too much time on the human aspect of this, you miss the overall thing, which is figuring out what these things are in the sky. I think that's the main focus. People are going to come in and try to divide the community. They're going to come in and they're going to lie. They're going to come on video and say they're shills. They're going to do all these things. But if you spend time focusing on these humans, then you are missing time figuring out what these things are in the sky, right? So just the distraction alone is part of the misinformation. It's just like, hey, watch Mike Gold say he's a shill, or watch this guy over here trying to figure out if he's lying or not. And all that time you spend doing that is time you could have spent assessing what we're seeing in these skies and trying to break that down. And that's what I tell the skeptics all the time, because when we have a whistleblower come out, they want to spend weeks and weeks and months trying to determine if this new whistleblower is lying or telling the truth. That's not what you should be using the time for. You should be looking at what this person says. You should be trying to take the nuggets of information and applying it or cross-referencing it with historical data that we've already captured to see what part of the story that you need to focus on, and then throw the rest away. Who cares if the rest of it was lies? Take the nuggets that you can find and apply those, and like I said, cross-reference those with historical data, and then just add to the data pot. Just quit spending so much time on just a human being and their tendency to lie or not. That's just, for me, I feel it's a waste of time. And the same thing when we get into the government stuff. Take the little nuggets, if they give any, if there are any there, but the rest of the stuff they're saying, just throw it out and don't spend a lot of time on it, because you only got one life to live. One life to live, as far as we know, right? You got one physical life here that we know of. And you don't want to spend all that time wondering or trying to figure out if this guy is lying or not, and then regret that you spent all your time doing that. At the end, when you're looking back on life, say, man, I spent 20 years sitting there, wondering if this guy was telling the truth or not, when really you could have been making that connection with whatever this is in the sky, or trying to figure out what that thing is. And that's just real. So let me go ahead and I know I have another video that I wanted to show here. Let me see. What is this? Also, motivation for these things isn't always about what a person will get, more about photos on them on an island somewhere, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. And this was a two-part thing. So let me start here. So Olander BC was saying, I agree, Rob, about using your own experiences to gauge professionals. Your experience is rock solid. So, unfortunately, it doesn't change the argument externally, still just opinion. And then he says as well, also motivation for these things isn't always about what a person will get, more about photos of them on an island somewhere, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, that's a tool that we know that they use as well. But let me get into this video here, because this goes back to the Need to Know episode, and you guys should definitely go watch it. Shout out to Ross Coulthard and Bryce Abel over there. They were kind of recapping because they hadn't done the show in a while, so they ended up touching on Ross's coverage of Jake Barber and the egg-shaped UFO, which we had already speculated that, or known from watching the actual interview. We knew from that this was not the egg that Jake Barber had captured, or the craft that Jake Barber had captured. This was from somewhere else. And so Bryce Abel asks about that, because obviously that's the conversation going around. And I've speculated on it, on why that would have been the case, that maybe, okay, he's showing someone else's video because of the level of disclosure, or the is as close as to the top as to disclosure you could get as far as whistleblowers go. Someone showing you a video of a craft being retrieved is literally right next to a person that's inside of the building working on the craft. So when we talk about whistleblowers like Elizondo, Grush, who have been threatened, and know of people that have been maybe unalived based on things that they may have known, then you would definitely think that someone who has access to a craft retrieval video would be an even higher value target for those that are in those back rooms trying to keep things secret, right? So my whole thought process was, maybe that's the reason why it was presented this way, because you can say, yes, it's not this guy I'm showing you on TV, so don't target him, because this is not the guy who released this video, and then keeping the person who did release it secret because of how close to, the root secret this video would be. If that video is determined to be real, then you are literally one step away from where they took this thing to. So, and Ross Coulthard kind of, Bryce Abel asked him about that, and he kind of covers that. And I wanted to show that right here because we've talked about this before, and I think it's something we need to look at. So here we go.
To tell me, there's, the classic video that there was even a promo from News Nation about, where everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's the night vision goggle version of the rope hanging down and the egg craft wrapped in something and that kind of thing. What is the provenance? You'd ask the same question of anyone else. So I'm just asking you, what's the provenance of that? Where did that video come from? Is it actually taken from Barber's craft, or was it taken at a different time? There's just a lot of rumor and misinformation on that one. So let's clear it up right now.
Clearly, I have many other sources inside the Legacy program. Clearly, there are other people talking to me. And clearly, I've been able to procure the video from the retrieval program in a completely separate operation from Jake Barber. Barber did not give me that video, period. That's all I can say.
Taken from Barber's craft, though, I guess is the question. No. So it's if anything, and again, I'd almost have to watch your show again, because I think that the initial rush of comment was people going, somebody said, well, by the way, that wasn't even taken, that's not related to it. And they put them together. But
you know what I find? It's funny, you give the UAP community what they want. And they
Right
come
on.
galloping over the hill like the cavalry going, oh, it's all a CIA psyop. It's all bullshit. Don't trust them. They're all false flags. And then you had other people saying, oh, it's an aerogel balloon. Don't you think if it was an aerogel balloon, the Pentagon would have been out on Monday morning, first thing, saying, this is complete bollocks. This is an aerogel balloon.
Right.
I mean, the bottom line is they know what we've got. They know what we're sitting on. And they're very nervous about what we're going to do with the rest of what we've got. And they'd better make a decision.
Can you
That's the
define
issue.
they? When you say they,
The gatekeepers. The
What's that?
gatekeepers. The people who are sitting on this absurd secret. We're doing them a favor.
Yes. That's exactly why, in the same sentiment that I felt as far as why they would have been holding that secret, or why it would have been positioned in a way that where it was purposely done, that they weren't showing you or connecting you to the person who leaked this video to Ross Coulthard, because the people, like I said, is one step away from the people who are actually holding that object in a facility somewhere, and they see the video being shown on the news and they are like, holy shit. Did you see they just showed the video on national news of the object that we're working on? Do you know what that does on the inside? How that begins to create this nervousness in this, because they know that, okay, they are one step away. Now, if they have that video, they probably have the other video that shows the transport vehicle that it got loaded onto, which means they probably know where it was taken to. And then now they're at every moment they're waiting for that knock at the door. Every moment they're sitting there like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I think that was more of what this play was. It wasn't to show or to kind of do a bait and switch where to make you think Jake Barber was the guy who did this. It was just like, Jake Barber has done this, but hey, guess what? We also have this video. And then that video, without giving any context, you notice how when it was shown, Ross didn't give any real context on it. Just said they presented the video like here, because the people that know that video was real, which are the people that would have retrieved the object, they have to be shitting bricks, is the best way I could say it at this moment. Because if that information is given to Congress, and if Congress is really about getting to, finding out where these projects are, then they literally know the address of where these objects are being held. And so that's the thing. And a lot of people didn't look at the interview that way. And I'm like, this is obviously what's going on. And Ross confirmed it. I believe that aired either yesterday or today on Need to Know. Go check out that full episode, because he really kind of goes over that and gets into some other good stuff too. So yeah. I mean, I think, when we talk about how close we could be to disclosure, I think that even though this is being shown and done through News Nation, which is a global, media outlet, I still think that the government doesn't have any effect on whether or not that information gets to come out, right? So that benefits us and us putting the pieces together. And literally, if the other couple pieces to that story, are available to, and if they're holding on to it, because he obviously is hinting at, he said they know what we have, they know what else we have, and it has to be that final thing that connects that dot to where these things are being held. And then I don't know, maybe people start showing up at these facilities outside the perimeter gates and doing things of that nature, right? Or maybe we get to a point where we can start figuring out what facility these things are being held at. But we're right there. And just so you know, people who had kind of put the whole egg thing to bed, I said an egg is ridiculous. It's an egg. Gotta stop doing that. Gotta stop doing that until something has been processed and vetted to show that it isn't what it's being shown to be. Then you gotta leave it on your board. You gotta leave it there until you can do one of the two. You can vet that it isn't anything, or we can connect that final dot to where this thing, if it's real, where it's at, right? And so I think that's a big thing. And maybe if we look back on this announcement by Anna Paulina Luna and we talk about this transparency, this task force on the declassification of federal secrets, maybe this committee is able to, because she said they would get also along with their already top secret clearance, this special access program approval as well, that maybe they get to go in and knock on the door. Maybe this committee is what allows them to go knock on the door to as far as this final piece goes, because if they can, or whoever can end up being the one to knock at this door, I think forces the issue and kind of puts it in a position where people are going to be exposed and people have to talk. You got to say something. So with that being said, that has been the presentation and the conversation today. And I think it was pretty awesome. You guys are great. Let me see who else is commenting on here. Overlander says Australia is just an arm of the U.S. military industrial complex. So anything that comes out of their media wise, sus. Yeah, I can see that. I don't know that I consider Ross as that though. Says also the egg might be a message, like a message so in our faces is just so simple in 30 years when we look back. If you watched the previous show I showed you why the egg thing means something to me. And I showed you videos of things that line up with what this egg thing is. And also historical incidents where egg-shaped craft have been observed. And in some of those cases with things that get out of those things. So I don't think there's enough there from what I have experienced in my own sighting and then with historical data to kind of give this egg situation validity. Because if there was ever going to be a misinformation attempt, or they wouldn't use something that people are actually seeing, like they would use something to be the more classic style UFO, or something that you could just say, immediately look at it without knowing any other information and say that thing isn't from here. If it was going to be something that somebody wanted to fake or to hoax, they wouldn't use an egg, because if you're using any brain at that moment that you're trying to put this scheme together, you would know immediately people are going to say that looks like a freaking egg and wouldn't go any further with it. But just like Ross said, how he said that the people who are in control of these things see that video and they know that that video is real because they know that they have that object. The same way that would resonate with the people in those projects that actually have the object is the same way that video resonated with me in accordance to the objects that I observed that completely disappeared into thin air, which also ties into historical accounts that we have from just going way back 60 years ago and even further, truthfully. So when we look at it, there's a lot of validity to that. And if it was going to be fake, I just feel like they would not have chosen an egg shaped object. And if you look at it, it's really not egg shaped. It's more oblong. If you look at it, it's not like like a perfect egg shaped sort of thing. It's more oblong. If you look at that egg video again. Let's see, Overlander, what do you got here? I feel like the egg shape is alluding to something about propulsion systems, travel. It's a metaphor or an example of sorts, and some people may already know. Yep, Zenzabil says, well, an egg shape is very efficient and a strong shape. Yep, I could see that. Magneticus, all the egg, all the egg prices. Yeah, and just so funny. And that's the thing. And when we immediately put labels on it like egg, then it puts there's less of a it the chance of it being taken seriously, those chances go down a lot, right? Because now we have to get through all the egg jokes, we have to get through all the omelet jokes and get all through that before we can sit down and be like, wait a minute, this really might be something, right? And it's going to take people who have seen things like this out there doing weird things in the sky, flying in the sky, to be like, nah, that's not an egg. No, let me tell you, this is X, Y, and Z. And for someone who hasn't seen something like that, it's easy for you to fall into the egg discussion, right? And to become part of that conversation. But for people who have seen things like this in the sky, either flying or floating or whatever the hell they're doing, they are up there and they're moving around and doing things up there. So whether you call that flying, floating, gravitating, whatever you call it, these objects line up with things that we have seen up there that shouldn't be up there, and that's kind of what it is. So go check the video I did on that. If you haven't already seen it, you should definitely check it out, because I think we make a pretty good case on why the shape itself makes sense, and also images and videos of these sort of type of objects being caught in the sky. And then, yeah, just go from there. Just take the evidence and let the evidence take you where it leads you. With that being said, I definitely want to thank everybody for coming in tonight. It's been awesome hanging out. We're at about an hour and a half, which is usually where I like to keep this show. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to get up out of here. I know Richard Minnick, thank you for your support with the awesome super chat. That's what helps make these things happen, man. All the doodahs and things you see on the screen, this all comes from paying for subscriptions and things like that. So, support super chats. You can do super thanks later if you think about it. You could also become a member at any time. Let me go ahead and get to the graphics there, so we can get ready to take this thing on home. Social Bits coming soon. I'm working on it in the background. It's just so much work putting shows together. You just can't even imagine. Unless you've done it, then you know. Memberships are available. Become a social soldier today. You can do that by clicking on the link in the description, and I think the membership's as low as like $3 a month. It all goes to help make this a better show, and that's what we do here. Let me thank the members that we currently have listed. And I have to maybe update this list, but it's Ann Joanne, the Beekeeper, D. Nunley, Maggie M10, Flat 6, Miss Catherine Jones, Cosmic Joe Chronicles, West W. Decker, Steel Pooh 69, Polly Rotterman. If I missed anybody, I'll definitely be updating this list. Also, we have the social shop where you can get social swag. And I'm also doing the exclusive t-shirts on this channel for humanity, because this is why we do any of this here on this channel, is for the positive progression of humanity. And let me go ahead and show you that commercial, and we'll get up out of here. Welcome to the Social Shop, courtesy of the Social Dig. I am Mr. Rob G, and we are bringing you exclusive gear, and tonight's no different. We have humanity t-shirts, the positive progression of humanity. Yes, you can go out into the world and proudly show everyone what humanity means to you. $32.99. And remember, if you're a social soldier, you get an additional 20% off the price. That's right. Being a social soldier gets you an additional 20% off. And keep in mind, depending where you are in the world, shipping fees and taxes will be applied. Bringing you exclusive gear right here at the Social Shop on the Social Dig. All right, so that'll be it, guys. It's been fun. We'll do this again really soon. As stories come along, we'll definitely be jumping on here. I'm trying to find a way to maybe do some daily things here. So I'm cooking some things up in the background. We will be getting a lot more active here on the Social Dig as the numbers continue to grow. I think we finally hit like 600 the other day. Kind of goes up and down because some people unsubscribed and resubscribe, things of that nature. But I think we were somewhere around 600. So that's awesome. And I actually want to thank everybody out there for making that a possibility to be able to hit that. That means we're at least, have the ability to talk to 600 people out there and try to have these conversations that move the needle. And that's exactly what we want to do, and we will continue to do. As Magneticus knows, he's been here since the beginning, literally, and it's all appreciated. So with that being said, guys, it's been a pleasure. I will talk to you soon. See you maybe later this week. Who knows? But I for sure will see you on the after hours. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.